Today we're talking about angles of triangles, which most of you have heard about before, but we're going to incorporate some algebra equations, and that's going to help us with solving what various angles are with a triangle. So the first thing we're going to talk about are interior angles, and we've talked about interior angles in terms of transversals. So interior angles of a triangle, those are all your angles that are inside of the triangle. So they're inside the interior, right? That's the same thing, inside a triangle. Okay? And then for exterior angles, those are the outside of a triangle. So you're probably asking, when do you have an outside angles for a triangle? So what we're going to see are where lines are extending. So I'm going to draw a triangle here, okay? An exterior angle is going to be when a line continues on, and an exterior angle is the angle outside of that triangle. And we're going to talk about how to find that triangle's angles, those angles of the exterior angles as well as the interior angles. Now, as you guys have learned in previous lessons and whatnot, the sum of interior angles is 180 degrees for a triangle. All right, so every single angle inside of a triangle, which is 3 of them, that's why it's called a triangle, there's 3 angles, they must add up to be 180 degrees. So now we're going to have to figure out some math and equations to get our answers. So let's look at the first example, our red triangle. We have 3 angles listed, but one is an X. This is the one that we're going to have to find to figure out what the angles are. So as I said, all angles have to add up to 180. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our equation. We have 32 plus 48 plus x. X is the other angle, and we know it has to equal to 180 degrees. The first thing you do to solve this problem is to simplify. Since we can simplify the left side of the equation first, we will. We have 32 plus 48, and we are given 80. And then you bring everything else down. 80 plus x equals 180. That's also the same as 80 plus something is 180. So to find out what that is, we need to get rid of the 80 on the left side of the equation, and that's by subtracting it, because positive 80 minus 80 is 0, which is what we want, but we have to do it on the same side of the equation. An equal sign means we do things on both sides of the equation. So when we have x left over on the left side, we have that 180 minus 80 is 100. And we know that x, our angle, is equal to 100. In order to check your work, what you can do is add up all 3 of these angles and make sure it equals 180. So we already know that 32 and 48 are adding up to 80 degrees. And then we just have this 100 going there for the x. So we know that the entire triangle equals 180 degrees, and that's right. Now we're going to do the green triangle. So this one's going to be a little different because we have different signs and multiple x's, but we still have the same rule that applies. The sum of the interior angle is equal to 180. So I know that all 3 of these angles are equal to 180. So I'm going to have x, then x plus 28. Now, that last piece, this little square, you guys should know this by now, but it means 90, okay? And we know that it's going to equal 180 degrees. Oops, going to squeeze that in there. Now, we cannot simplify this parenthesis, which is what we would do in order of operations. So instead, we're going to combine our like terms on the left side of the equation. We have 2 x's, and then you do 28 plus 90, which is 118. And you equal it to 180. Now this is a multi-step equation. The first thing you do is the opposite order of operations, which at the very end, if you guys think about your PEMDAS, right, we have adding and subtracting. That's the last thing we do in regular order of operations, so we undo it. So I'm going to get rid of my addition by doing the opposite. So I get rid of the 118. It was adding, so now I'm subtracting. I'm left with 2x equals. Now we have 180 minus 118. So I go ahead through the steps of borrowing, and I am left with 62. The last thing we do is one step up on order of operations, It's multiplication division. Well, 2 is multiplying to x, so what we do now is divide. We do the opposite action. So x is equal to 31 degrees when you do 62 divided by 2. So that is what the value of x is. Go ahead and try the next two on your own. In order to check your work, you can plug in x to your answers, and then you can make sure that the whole triangle's interior angles add up to 180 degrees. The exterior angles of a triangle are a little different. So when we have a triangle and we extend it, we have an exterior angle right here, okay? So the deal is the exterior angle is the sum of the two opposite interior angles. So what's happening here, opposite interior angles. All right, so what we have here is whatever this angle is, we're going to call this x, okay? It's the sum of these two angles. So let's say this angle is 20 degrees and this is 90 degrees, all right? Those are the two opposite angles of that triangle, and it is the sum of the two. So x is going to be, when you add them together, which is 110 degrees. And that is how we would find that exterior angle. So what we're going to do here is continue that with our examples. So we need to find x, and remember, it's the sum of the two opposite angles of that triangle. So we have 36 plus 72, and it must equal x. So when we add them together, we get 108 degrees, and that is equal to what our x is, what our value is, okay? So we do the same thing with this yellow triangle, but this might be a little different because there are so many more variables, okay? So we have that 80 plus a minus 5 is equal to 2a. These two angles must add to equal our exterior angle. Now, we need to combine our like terms on the left side of our equation. What I want you guys to pay attention to are the signs in front of the numbers. I have a positive 80 and a negative 5. That's what this means, minus 5. All right? I also have taught the keep, change. So it would be A is going to be the keep. You change this to plus, change 5 to a negative. So it's a negative 5. So let's do 80 plus a negative 5. That is the same thing as 75, or 80 minus 5. So 75 plus a equals 2a. Now I have to get my a's on the same side of the equation. This a on the left side is going to move over, and because it's positive, I'm going to subtract it to the other side. It cancels it out. So I'm left with 75 equals 2a minus 1a is another regular a. So a is equal to 75 degrees. Now, let's look at what our question's actually asking us, though. It doesn't say find the x or find the variable. It says find the measure of the exterior angle. Our exterior angle is 2a. So we have to plug 75 into that. That means 2 times 75. Okay, whoops, I wrote 2a. 2 times 75 is 150 degrees. And that is your answer. Please make sure that you are reading the question that's being asked, because the next two that you guys are going to do, it does say find the measure of the exterior angle. So especially on our last example, this red one, when you do find the measure, you have to find out what n is equal to, okay? Then you're going to have to plug it into this equation or this expression. So you would have to do 4 times whatever n is and then subtract 20 from it to get your answer. Now we're going to use a real-life situation about an airplane. So an airplane leaves for Miami and travels around the Bermuda Triangle. What is the value of x? So they're asking for all of these interior angles. They're just wondering what x is. So we can see our different areas, and you guys can also remember that they all have to add up to equal 180 degrees. Remember, they're all interior angles. So I have an x plus 62.8 plus 2x minus 44.8. Sorry, I got mine all squeezed in there. Okay, so I'm going to combine all my x's. So I have 1x and then 2x's. Well, that makes 3x. All right. Now, just as we did in one of the previous examples, I have 62.8, but now it's minus 44.8. So we have 62.8 minus 44.8. So we have to do that math, and you do have to borrow. So 12 minus 4 is 8, and I get 18 when you combine those together. So we have 3x plus 18 equals 180. That's much more simplified, easier to solve. Now we go ahead and get rid of our 18. Because you're adding it, you do the opposite operation by subtracting it. That way it cancels out on the left side of the equation. So we're left with a 3x, and it's equal to, we're going to borrow, make sure we do our problem correctly, and you get 162. Now we have to divide it by 3, because remember, when 3 is next to x, it means it's multiplying. So x is equal to 54 degrees. Go ahead and try the next example. It says, in the previous example, the airplane leaves from Fort Lauderdale. Now they're saying that the interior angle measure at Bermuda is 63.9 degrees, and the interior angle at San Juan is x plus 7.5. So what I would do first is draw that triangle, okay? So you know that one of your angles is x plus 7.5. The other one is x that we're still trying to find. And then we have 63.9. All right, so now I have your triangle built for you. Go ahead and find the value of x by doing the correct equation and combining of terms. All right.